Hello everybody. I am Josip Antolis, and today I'll talk about some of my kind of personal experiences and just some stuff that I made up to help me deal with those. So to get you all in kind of my mindset, I'll just start with a few facts of where I'm coming from and what I do there. I'm a software engineer at Infobip, and there I work in the infrastructure team. We build tools, libraries, and services used by our other in-house developers to kind of solve some common problems so they can focus on delivering value, right? And in particular, in the last 5 years, I've been working on our API gateway service. Now, in Infobip, we have this microservice type architecture, meaning that each of our teams actually develops, deploys, and maintains their own set of microservices. And then, in order to present kind of a unified HTTP API to all of our clients, we have this one central API gateway type of application that my team works on. And then all the incoming HTTP requests actually land on this service first. We do some authentication, maybe some logging, we export metrics, and then we send these requests to processing on these microservices in the backend, right? And since this is kind of an entry point into Infobip platform, I have, over the years, managed to see some degradations of performance and even some outages on some of our products, right? And let me tell you, these kinds of incidents, they are just not fun. They're not fun because your business is probably losing money at that point. If your product is not up, if it's not running, you may have kind of some sort of pay per transaction model, like maybe you're sending messages, or maybe you have this e-commerce and your checkout is not working, right? And what's even worse, you may have kind of subscription type models, but you actually lose trust of your users, and they will go away, they will go to your competitors, so incidents hurt your business. And also, incidents are stressful for those of us who actually get called, get paged, and get asked to solve them. Because going into an incident, well, first of all, they are costing your business money, and then you actually don't know much about what's causing the issue, right? You get an automated alert, or you get a customer complaint, but you don't know the root cause. And you need to quickly identify this root cause, and you need to quickly resolve it. So it's a stressful situation. And now, that's why incidents are not fun. But luckily, in Infobip at least, we have this site reliability engineering team. And this team is actually there to make incidents kind of easier for us and to help us along. They create great incident management procedures. They stay up to date on just the latest on incident management. They build and kind of maintain tools that make incident management easier for all of us. So we have these kind of procedures, we have these kind of tools. So that kind of helps us in incident management. However, in my work, I've kind of noticed that we still have a couple of challenges left that maybe we cannot really solve with these incident management procedures and tools, right? So in Infobip, we have over 100 developer teams. And as I mentioned, all our developers, they're not only coding their services, they're actually deploying them and maintaining them in production. Meaning each one of our developers may be called to participate in incident management if their service actually suffers some degradation. And in addition to that, we have this large customer support department. And all of these support engineers, they are in contact with our customers, and they need to communicate kind of incident impact to them and stuff like that. So this is, again, one large group of people who are involved with incident management. And there are some other groups of people. But basically, what I'm trying to get at, there is a lot of people that can be called to actually kind of help resolve the incident. And when we have a lot of people, they may not all know about all these procedures and tools that are supposed to make their lives easier, right? So it's not just a problem of adhering to the procedure, they may not even be aware of it. So this is kind of an educational type of problem. And same goes for tools. like I mentioned, incidents are stressful for those of us trying to resolve them. And if I'm not comfortable with using some tool, me trying to figure out how this new dashboard looks and works in the middle of the incident may actually do more harm than good to me. And lastly, as I mentioned, we have kind of different groups of people, different roles, who are all involved in this incident management. And at given time of the incident, these groups of people may have kind of conflicting or just different goals, okay? I already mentioned developers and support engineers. And at the beginning of the incident, kind of our support engineers, they need to report impact to our clients. We need to communicate transparently and accurately what's going on. So they're trying to analyze the impact. And on the other hand, we have our developers, and they're tasked with just resolving the incident as fast and as quickly as possible. So they're trying to find out the root cause of the incident and kind of how to work around or fix it. So these are kind of different goals, and at times they just step on each other's feet. So there is conflict, and there can be some friction between these different roles in the same incident management process. And of course, we would all benefit if we all worked together, right? So that's kind of one additional challenge that we may have in this situation. So none of these challenges can actually be solved by more procedures or by more tools, right? They are more sort of training thing and educational thing. So I was looking at this, and I kind of decided to start small and just organize incident management training for my own team. This was a couple of years ago. There were 5 or 6 of us in the team, and I kind of talked to my mentors, to my managers, and they agreed this is a good idea. We should train incident management, and we included this in my own development plan, and I was kind of tasked with organizing this incident management training. And what I was trying to do at first, I was trying to kind of simulate this incident that occurred, let's say, half a year or a year ago. So I was thinking to simulate it in some control environment and then just let my team practice resolving this real incident there, right? So it sounds relatively straightforward, but then I encountered some issues. Like when you think about the incident, incidents are composed of 2 things. It's input, client behavior. In our case, those were HTTP requests, reaching our system. And then second component of incident is current state of this system. So in my case, those would be just versions of these microservices that were running at the moment. That would be state of some databases. That would be some configuration files and stuff like that. So in order to simulate with kind of this high fidelity, I imagined it being like a matrix-like environment. In order to simulate incidents there, I needed to just recreate the state of these microservices. So I needed to kind of find my old Docker images from back then, and I maybe don't even have those images around anymore, so I need to rebuild them from source, and then I need to also rebuild libraries that are my dependencies because they may not be around still. And when I have all of that, I need to kind of provision some small data center and deploy it all there. And that's just applications. Then there are databases. And for databases, I need to kind of recreate the schema and then fill it with something that reflects the state as it was back when the incidents happened. And it was just too much work for me to do this reliably and to do this in some relatively okay amount of time. I was just failing at it. And I would just think about it and like I'd go dark, like I couldn't do it. And I don't like failing, so it kept just bugging me, in the back of my mind. I put it in my development plan. I'm supposed to do this incident management training, and I can't even set up the environment for it. I didn't like it. And then I was kind of on my vacation 2 years ago, just a little bit south from here. And I was thinking about tabletop role-playing games. Now, I'm a bit of a geek, and I enjoy this type of games. So what are they all about? They are kind of group social storytelling kind of games where a couple of friends usually get together. One of them is a game master, and game master envisions this, usually a fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, some fictional fictional world. And then Game Master presents this world of theirs to their players, and each player role plays a character in this world, and then they kind of interact with the world, with each other, and they have fun. And then it occurred to me I can kind of borrow one concept from these tabletop role-playing games. In them, there is this concept of theater of the mind that goes something like this. You don't need some kind of fancy graphics like you would get in a video game, or you don't need some, I don't know, terrain map and miniatures like in those war games, or some board game setup with, again, some map. All you need is actually your game master that envisions a scene. It can be a battlefield or a courtroom or something, and they describe it to their players. And then all the players kind of imagine this scene and then react to it in their minds, and then they tell a story together. So I thought, how can I actually apply this to my incident management training? And I figured, yes, I can directly apply it to my training scenario. I can have my kind of colleagues in my team come to me and ask me, okay, like, what's the CPU on this machine? And all I need to know is kind of how the system works and what the cause of the incident is. And I can just figure out, okay, in this machine, like, CPU was around 20%, but then 15 minutes ago, it skyrocketed to 100%. And I tell this to my teammates. And they go and they can now reason about this. It doesn't matter if I told them this or they read it on some dashboard. It's the same information they get, and they can kind of start thinking about it. And I figured that I can actually get rid of all this simulation stuff. I don't need to deploy anything. I don't need to find kind of all versions of database or service or whatever. I can just run it all in my mind and interact with my colleagues. And we can kind of try solving the incident that way. And then it hit me. In order to kind of solve the incident, they don't need to just query me for information. They need to actually perform some steps to resolve the thing. So in that case, I again look back at tabletop role-playing games, and they use chance there. They use dice, and they roll the dice, and that kind of determines what happens. So I decided to kind of reuse the same principles in kind of my training example. So let's say my teammates come to me and they say, okay, we want to now go into source code of this application, and we want to debug it and kind of try to find the issue and fix it and deploy that. And then I'm like, okay, that's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff you don't know already, so it's going to be very difficult for you. So here you go. You get 5 6-sided dice, you roll your dice, and then you need to get a sum of, I don't know, 26 on those dice. And if you do, then you luck out and you just stumble upon the right thing and you fix it. But it's very hard to get this kind of large sum on these dice. So my kind of teammates are likely to actually fail if they try to do this. And then if they think about it, if they analyze the problem, and if they come to me and say, okay, but we know that it's actually this counter that is overflowing, and we want to kind of change this variable from an int into a long. And I'm like, okay, you gave this some thought. This is actually good reasoning, and it's a targeted kind of thing that you are trying to do. You are likely to succeed this time. So I'm going to tell them, okay, you roll your dice again, but this time you only need to get a sum of 6. And so they are very, very likely to actually succeed in this case. So by this time, I realized that I'm not just using this theater of the mind concept, I'm actually pulling out some other concept from role-playing games. And in fact, I realized I'm building my own tabletop role-playing game, effectively. I'm just coming up with rules for it. So I took a break, and I decided to brand it. That's very good. Branding is good. I decided to call it Deployments and Disasters because it sounded nice. I decided to call myself a Disaster Master because I thought that was cool. And then I decided, what happens if I think about my colleagues, folks participating in this training, as players? And that's where I actually start to take some gamification concepts and seeing how I can apply them to actually solve some of these challenges that I mentioned earlier. So, what were the challenges? Like, I need to raise awareness of procedures, of tools, and I need to get people working together to kind of break this conflicting goals problem. And this last seemed like the hardest thing to do, right? How are you gonna change people's mindsets? But then I realized that games in general are very good at building empathy. And role-playing games especially. Like, imagine these video games when you play some character and you kind of, by playing the game, you build empathy between you as a player and the character you're playing. So I decided to use this in my deployments and disasters game. And I set up some roles in my game. So I had a role for front-end engineer, I had a role for database administrator, a role for support engineer, etc. And then I introduced one simple rule. When you come to play deployments and disasters, you cannot be the same role, you cannot play the same role that you have in real life, right? So if you are a front-end developer, that's great. You can play support engineer, you can play product owner, but you cannot be front-end engineer. And just with this simple rule, I kind of flip things around and I get my players to actually, I put them in shoes of other people and I get them to experience incidents from other people's perspective. And then when real incidents hit, they have this kind of bug in their head and they're thinking, oh, but this, I don't know, poor developer, he has to figure out the root cause, I'm gonna help him or her. So this was kind of the first thing when I realized I can use some game rules to kind of impact how people behave. And also I noticed that my players actually really get into this role-playing part of the game, right? And I would get, like this especially, if I get developers playing and I give them product owner role, they really like to role-play this product owner role. I don't know why. And that's when I realized that this game is actually fun. And it's kind of like, well, it's a game, so maybe obvious, but for me this was a very valuable thing, because oftentimes, in companies, and especially as the company grows, you may get these mandatory training sessions that you need to attend, or some certification process requires some training. And, we usually don't like any mandatory and maybe a lot of training stuff that we need to do. So having a fun kind of training actually helps with adoption, and it helps to spread the word around. Like, I would organize one session with one team, and then they would talk to some other team, and in a couple of days I get a call, hey, how about that game? Do you want to run this game for us too? And so it kind of helps the thing spread around. And also, it kind of builds this good atmosphere for accepting new ideas in my players. It kind of makes this positive reinforcement thing easier. And I realized that I can use positive reinforcement to showcase some tools. Now, kind of spreading the idea and training people to use tools is where actually maybe this simulation approach that I didn't go with is maybe better. Like, I admit that actually using, I don't know, Grafana to find some stuff will train people how to use Grafana, and they will know how to do it when the real incident hits. With these deployments and disasters, I'm just kind of narrating to them what happens. So my players, they will not know immediately what Grafana looks like. So I'm at a disadvantage here. But what I realized I can do, I can use my deployments and disasters game to showcase tools that people may not be aware of. And there is this very easy trick that I used to kind of boost people's opinions of tools. Now, I hope my players are not actually listening to this, or they just don't get angry at me if they are. But like, I introduced difficulties to all actions that my players do. So if my players want to query Prometheus metrics, I tell them, okay, here are dice, roll them, and if you roll well, I tell you what the metrics look like. And if I wanted to promote Prometheus as a tool for diagnostics, I just make these rolls easier. So I say, you want to find stuff out? Okay, if you use Prometheus, that you need to get a sum of 5 on these dice. And if you use some other tool, you need to get a sum of 8. And then my players kind of instinctively flock to this Prometheus tool, and they always use it, because it's easier for them. And then this is kind of crucial thing that happened to me after the game. Players come to me and say, okay, I did not know about this Prometheus tool, but it sounds really good. It helped me solve this imaginary incident. I want to learn more, kind of, are you using it in production, how it works, and this story then gets rolling. And those players actually use their own time later on, to go and investigate and learn about Prometheus or some other tool. So that's one way that I can kind of, again, put a little bug in their minds and get them exploring and learning about tools that we have later on. And I kind of realized that I can do similar thing for procedures. With procedures, it's usually that people are kind of aware that we have procedures, but usually they don't know why the procedures are there. Like, why do we need to do it, and how does it help us, and what do I need to do to follow the procedure, and stuff like that. So in this case, I was trying to motivate procedures. And I do this in a couple of ways. And one kind of strong way is I decided to structure one session, one playthrough of deployments and disasters, just to reflect our actual incident management process. Like every session of deployments and disasters has 3 steps. And the first step is just players meeting each other, the disaster master presenting the scenario set of services that is going to fail and assigning roles to players. So that's just some initial kind of just getting to know each other. And then in the second stage, incident actually hits. And I start the second stage by actually telling them, my players, about an automated alert that they received. So right off the bat, I'm kind of introducing this concept of incident starts with automated alert, and then they get rolling solving this incident. And in solving the incident, they take kind of these rounds. And each round asks my players to kind of organize and think up some actions they want to perform. And in the beginning, I give them kind of 6 rounds to complete the incident. If they don't do it by the end of round 6, it's kind of catastrophic loss of profit, all the clients go away, the company is ruined, and they are out of job. So they have 6 turns to solve it. But then I tell them, okay, but if you, in your first 3 rounds, manage to send out an accurate and detailed impact report, then I will extend your incident management time for additional 6 rounds. So if they report impact by the end of 3rd round, they actually get 12 rounds altogether to solve the issue. And here, I'm kind of nudging them in this direction of thinking about clients, of reporting stuff to clients, or of finding out the impact. All the things that I want them to do in real incident management scenario, right? And then for the last part of the game, that's after round 6 or 12, incident is over. And in the last part, I have my players analyze the incident. I have them kind of go through this review process. I have them kind of figure out what the contributing causes to the incident are. Not just the root cause, but contributing causes like these 5 or 7 why questions and stuff like that. And then I have them analyze like what prevented them from responding to the incident better, or what tools or procedures could help them respond to incidents better in the future. And these takeaways that they kind of come up with in this last section, and if players are kind of playing around with services that they don't actually build, they can get very critical. It can be very fun to watch them criticize these poor services in the game. So, but then they can take these criticisms and they can apply them directly to their own service, to their own monitoring setup, to their own alerting, etc. So they actually get some improvement ideas for their own real production stuff based off this, well, game. So these were kind of some ways that I tried to craft the rules for deployments and disasters in a way that actually helps me solve these 3 original challenges that I have. And kind of what's interesting to me is that I really think that these challenges, like awareness and adherence to procedures, like knowing the right tools for the right job, like coordinating and getting good at solving things together, these are not kind of specific challenges that I saw in the company, or not just specific challenges to the company that I work for currently. I think that any team with enough people, let's say 20 or 30 people, that all participate in this incident management, that have somebody set some tools for them, they all will probably run into these challenges or very similar things. So I believe that this kind of gamification approach to training for incidents is actually universally helpful. Now, I created a couple of scenarios, couple of playthroughs of this game for Infobip. However, in this, I kind of used our own existing incidents that happened on our platform. I used our own tooling. I crafted it to match our own procedures. So I cannot share these scenarios with you, and you probably wouldn't find them useful anyway, because they are kind of tailor-made for our use case. But what I did, I extracted all the rules that I kind of put together for this deployments and disasters game, and I put them all onto this little website, this GitHub Pages site, where you can go and kind of read stuff from player perspective. So if you want to play the game of deployments and disasters, here are the rules to play. You can read it from disaster master perspective. So it tells you how to actually craft your own scenarios and how to host your own games in your company. And then there's a special section that goes into why I put the rules the way I did, and kind of what challenges, what problems I'm trying to solve with these rules. And you can use this last section to kind of talk to your managers, to talk to kind of higher-ups in your company, and to kind of tell them, why you need incident management training in the first place, and how this approach in particular may help you. And there you can find some kind of metrics and some ideas on how to actually track these improvements you get from a game of deployments and disasters. Because at the end of the day, this is kind of a game, but the main value, the benefit, and why it exists is to actually help you improve your real-life incident management process. So thank you all. I hope you check this thing out, and if you do, please kind of reach out to me, tell me about your experiences, tell me if it helped you or not, and if you customize some stuff, tell me about the customizations, let me know if it works for you or not. So thanks, and good luck in your incident management process. Yeah.